You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch TV and movies about New Jersey. We're back, baby.
Yeah.
We're back in the Jers. Oh, nobody says that. I'm so excited.
Well, you're just a Jersey tomato.
I'm just a Jersey tomato, like Tawny. You know what I missed? I missed women vocalizing eerily. I really did. And hauntingly as well.
Haunting, eerie.
Haunting and
vocalization.
Eerie. Yeah, that's just my vibe, and I missed it. And
Absolutely.
It's so nice to be back with other women who vocalize eerily. It's so
You're
nice.
listening to The Watchers, a show where two women vocalize eerily.
Yes.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Jody. And we went backwards to season 1 of the Yellowjackets, I almost said of The Watchers. We went back to season 1 of Yellowjackets.
Yeah, if you're somebody, well, I guess you figured it out by now, but we started with season 2.
Yeah.
In fact, this time last year, I was watching season 1 with a wicked case of COVID.
Yep.
And thinking, I threatened to start a new podcast every week, but
I know. Yeah, for those who haven't been with us since the very beginning, Andrea,
thank you for being here today.
Yes, thank you. And Andrea got COVID last year, right after Christmas, and I recommended Yellowjackets as a good COVID watch. And it all began. It's like just, this pilot.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's like we were just talking off mic about pilots in general. I think shows have gotten more like thoughtful and like careful about their pilots, but I just think in general we're kind of like, you let a pilot like do what it needs to do, but you don't take it as seriously and you don't judge a show by its pilot.
Right.
But Yellowjackets came out so strong.
It came out really hard, yeah. And I also think that... So, actually, we should just set up for people what the fuck we're doing, because we're not doing this as like a traditional recap episode. I mean, we're doing it episode by episode, but we are assuming, this is your warning, that you have watched seasons 1 and 2 at this point. Yes. Because we are going to be talking about each episode in the context of what we now know by the end of season 2. We're not going to be like spoiler free in any way.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of this like we're making the podcast I would want to be listening to right now while waiting for season 3 to come back. Right.
And so we will go episode by episode. We will kind of be a little more freeform about it than we were with our recaps in season 2 because everything was new then and we were analyzing everything from every angle. And I feel like we've done that. And so now it's about like more looking at it as a whole and thinking about what each episode was showing us and just like thinking about them, like you said, about the pilot, like in terms of how they built this TV show. Because I think I loved season 2. There were some mixed feelings about season 2. Everyone who watches this show agrees that season 1 was incredible. Like it built really well. It was like planned super well. It was threaded through with like Easter eggs, but not like to a point where it was not paying off.
Right.
You know? So I think we just wanted to kind of go back and revisit this season knowing what we know now. And since we never got to do a season 1 podcast, just kind of have that experience.
Yeah, I think it's so clear from this pilot that at least for the first season, this show knew exactly what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
You can feel, and it's the same with any show. Like, I mean, I know, or I guess we know, or do we know, Jody, how much our showrunners had planned, or our show writers, who I think are the same people for this show, but how far into the series the show was planned when they kicked off season 1?
They had said that they envisioned it as what, like a 4-season show or a 5-season show, something like that.
That's right.
And so I don't know for a fact any of this, but I'm going to assume that they had a loose plan beyond season 1, just knowing how this is typically, like season 1 is really fleshed out. They have ideas of where the characters are going to go, but all of that's like subject to change based on fan reaction and whims of writers and things like that.
So I'm thinking of a show like Lost, where originally it was planned to be 3 seasons, and they said all along they knew exactly what it was going to be and where it was going. And it ended up because of the first the writer's strike, and then with the powers that be who put money into the show saying no, like the show's really successful, it has to be more. It ended up being 6 seasons. That's when it really went off the rails. But Damon Lindelof and Carlton Hughes have always insisted that they at the very least knew what the last shot of the series would be, and that was kind of them being like oh, when we said we knew where the show was going all along, what we meant was
right.
And so that's what I'm curious about with Yellowjackets is how, like, if we could sit down with them, right, and swear an oath
Ashley
of secrecy,
and Bart, come on our podcast.
could they tell us, and season 3, here are the major beats, season 4, and here's where it ends.
Right.
As you know, I wonder how much of that they know. Obviously, we know, for example, like Natalie, like one of the biggest fan issues with the series so far has been the exit of her character. Mm-hmm. And they certainly weren't accounting for that, because that was Juliette Lewis deciding she didn't want to be on the show anymore. Right. So that's...
And also Van was supposed to be killed off. Yeah. You know? And
but
they
loved her
so much. Yes, we loved
said,
her too much.
No.
No, do not take Van.
They tried to kill her, 3 times?
Yeah. And so that is true. Like they have a rough outline, I'm sure, but things do change constantly when you're making a show like that. Of course. So I do think that, I don't think it's controversial to say that season 2 was a little more uneven than season 1, but I think, a second season of any show is going to be in a weird competition with the first one in a way that doesn't happen when you keep getting into later seasons.
Right.
But it was really nice, I gotta say, to revisit like the pilot of this show that was so clear-headed and knew exactly what it was doing and what it wanted to sound like and what it was trying to get you to feel. And it just has such a perfect tone to set it up for the rest of the first season.
And I think a good, some proof of that is when we were just talking about how we were going to approach this recap is realizing there's not a whole lot really that happens, especially considering how much happens in later episodes. There's not listeners later on in season 2, or watchers, viewers, saying where there are episodes where not much happened. Remember how that was a complaint a lot of the times? Yeah. Plot-wise,
not a lot happens.
Not a lot happens.
There's a lot of setup in this episode.
So much, which, it's the job of the pilot. But it's this isn't a show that really has been so plot-heavy every single episode.
Well, and I think that it's funny because it is the goal of a pilot to do this kind of setup. Mm-hmm. It never felt that way to me, though, watching it. It didn't feel like it was here is this person and here is this person. It did feel like it had things happening in it. It's just that we are so used to the ratcheting up that happened later on that this feels like not a lot. But this did a lot of work.
But it only felt like not a lot to me when I went through and was actually writing it out and then talking to you and being like, oh, here's what happens in 96. And then having to be like, oh, in terms of plot, it's like a broken leg.
Yeah.
And a plane crash. And a party.
And a party. Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is sort of the delicate balance of a pilot that they really pulled off. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things we said we were going to do was just do a quick recap of what happened in each timeline, and then just kind of go from there and think about what they're setting up here, what we reacted to this time around looking back. Because I know that for you didn't watch it quite as many times as I did originally.
No. And the first, I watched it once with COVID, and then I don't even know that I have probably watched every episode of season 1 again since then. Right. But I didn't do it systematically because the way I did season 2, I've watched every episode probably 3 times. Yeah. As we were working, through for the podcast. Yeah. And that'll probably happen again now. I did watch it. I watched the pilot twice this week. I watched it once when I was texting you about it to get ready. And then I watched it again last night. Just to... Yeah.
It's so fun to watch it after... I'd like to thank last year's version of me for all the notes I took, because I was able to I color-coded shit. I was able to just watch it. And in doing so, notice... kind of pulled back and notice it as a whole. And the things that really stood out to me were a little bit different when I wasn't analyzing it or like writing down a million notes for a podcast. That was cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I found the article I was looking for. So Ashley said the original plan was about 5 seasons. They don't see it as more than a 5-season show. Oh wait, here, this is actually, so I'm going back a little bit because I found what I was looking for. But when you were talking about how much do they have planned across the number of seasons that they were thinking about, Ashley Lyle said, where is the part I was looking for? So far, we've been really on track. Season 2 is largely what we always planned, but you do make a lot of discoveries along the way, and so it's always a little bit surprising. And then Bart said, in terms of some of the major places that we wanted to land and move the story to, that is happening, but a lot of the dynamics and what it means to the characters is different than I necessarily thought they would be. Some of the major signposts are still happening. They're just happening in different ways, which I feel is perfect for keeping the experience alive and vital on our side. We take a lot of excitement from the discovery portion. So, to answer the question that you asked, that is where they're kind of at with it. So, that answers the earlier question of how much ahead are they thinking. They have signposts, they have places they want to land, but the character development is kind of, which tracks with Van still being alive, with Lottie totally kind of like evolving as a character in a way that was really unexpected. I just wanted to get that, because that's from a recent article from like 2 weeks ago when they were talking about season 3 being in development.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I wonder what they'd say now knowing about Natalie being gone. I was thinking this was like a getting ready for season 2.
No, this was like an update. Yeah, this was a
Good to know.
Mid-December, they kind of updated the press about like the fact that they're in development, they're working on it, and did a little bit of like interviews and things like that. Actually, I hadn't read this article. I just pulled it up because that's what I was looking for. But Karen Kusama, who is one of the producers and has directed many of the episodes, this is not from the recent interview, but it says, previously teased what's coming, saying, I've been so excited by this. The concept of that immediate aftermath of re-entry to the world, to me, there's a whole season worth of material there. And the fact that this is such a long game that each of these characters is facing in terms of reorienting themselves to whatever normalcy is supposed to be. I'm sure we're going to learn that their normal is a lot different than our normal. There's a lot that needs to be figured out between season 2 and season 3. All right. So let's just kind of do a little recap of the episode and just see where it takes us, because I do think that there's lots of little tangents that I think that we'll end up going off on. One of which is, I don't want to talk about it right now. I was going to bring up the music again. I'm just amazed at how great the music was in the pilot. We'll talk about it, but they went so hard.
So hard.
Okay.
Even just like the diegetic stuff, like I know you just said we'll talk about it, but like Sean is listening to Liz Phair in the car, and when Jackie switches it to Informer. Like that's everything you need to know about the 90s.
I know.
It's just that little moment.
Anyway. And the two of their personalities.
Exactly. It's perfect. Everything about it. Everything. They're not just the song choices, but how Jackie being like, oh, were you listening to that? Knowing full well that Shauna was, and knowing that she's being kind of an asshole about it, and knowing that she's kind of... Anyway, okay. Whew.
I know.
This is the best show.
I know. The music really, really helps, too.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Iconic opening.
Already. The fact that I got past this first episode is just a tribute to the charm of this show, because there was enough in it that I could get past how disgusting the first scene is. And, like, you know, it's not disgusting in the beginning. We just see a girl running in the woods and, like, animal noises and crosses with bones and things, and talismans.
It's such a perfect setup. It's like, it's a wonder you made it past that first scene, and it is so perfectly it's like, especially now that we've watched Blair Witch Project, Jody.
It's so witchy.
It's so Blair Witchy.
It is.
And in that way of like, there's like talismans and stuff, but we know now they're talismans made by teenage girls in the woods.
Who just watched The Craft.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah. It is very, okay, so now that we've done all these movies, the Blair Witch and The Craft influence on this is like,
totally,
especially in this first scene, is so blatant. All the little like twigs tied together and like, Yeah. Oh.
Nothing spookier than a bundle of sticks for
Nope.
some reason. It
Nope.
still works.
Scary fucking sticks. Yeah. Yeah. So we open in the woods. The girl to be known as Pit Girl going forward.
Do we want to? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm joking. That's a joke.
It's Callie. No, we're not doing that. Yeah, absolutely not. This is not what we're doing. But yeah, she runs through the woods. She gets over to the top of the pit, falls in. I think we had an argument about whether this was a tiger pit at one point.
I mean, the argument was, did you think that I thought there were tigers in the Canadian wilderness?
Right.
I think that's just what we call those pits.
Right. Which is a turn of phrase I had never heard before. Tiger pit. But anyway, she falls into the pit, impaled.
This is because I grew up obsessed with wilderness survival tales, and you apparently did not. And that makes sense that,
Right.
I have a vocabulary already for this show that maybe was not so readily available for you.
My favorite book growing up was about two young kids who discovered an abandoned Victorian lake community in the woods, and
it's your closest survival tale.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I watched a lot of Little House on the Prairie, so yeah, civilized survival, not fighting tigers.
This is North and South Jersey at its best. Civilized survival is how you people got by up there.
Cute survival with like cast iron pots and like floral prints. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Very cottage core.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm out here digging tiger pits.
Not tiger pits. No. But so yeah, we open with a really rough scene. She falls in, she's impaled, they drag her out, we see the infamous necklace, they string her up. And then throughout the episode, we do get little flashbacks to them, like quote unquote preparing her.
Yeah, that's all we get of the wilderness, and we'll talk more about it toward the end. But that was another thing that was a little surprising to me. And I know we're talking about this like we watched it 10 years ago, and it's only been a year.
Yeah,
but a lot happened in the last year.
Yeah,
and it was a little surprising to me how little of the wilderness we got in that first episode.
I forgot that the plane doesn't actually fully go down in episode 1.
Yeah. Yep.
But then I remembered because the opening of episode 2 is one of the most iconic uses of a song in any TV show ever.
Oh, that's right.
Which is Coming Down the Mountain as they're crashing.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll talk about next week.
I can't wait. Yeah. But I forgot until watching this that we didn't actually see the plane fully crash in episode 1. I, for some reason, had thought that we also saw the scene with the axe and Coach, but we don't. That's next episode. So yeah. So mostly what we see in the woods is just basically like a flashback, flash forward.
Yeah, because we know now that's
towards the end. Yeah. Because just to recap for those people that aren't as fully in the weeds as we are, but like they're there for 19 months, and so we are currently in end of season 2 in the first winter. And so we kind of assume, due to the elaborate outfits and getup they're in and the number of people left, that that opening scene is probably from the second winter, which is very close to when they're rescued.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's all we get. We get a lot of great Jersey though in the 96 part, especially.
I know we've gone back and forth. These are Monmouth County girls 100%, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, so that opening, we see the soccer game to start where they go to champs, right? Like, we see Jackie head the ball into the goal, everybody hugs, and then we get the opening montage to Today by Smashing Pumpkins, which is when I knew that I was going to overlook every bit of gore in this show to stick with it, because we get all these little scenes of Jersey. It's very Sopranos in the it montage.
Does. Yeah, even I know that. I will say one quick thing that I noticed about this like qualifying game for nationals is it's Ty. The whole thing is Shauna trying to get Ty to pass her the ball. Ty won't. Ty tries to make that goal, and she gets it with an assist from Jackie, a headshot.
Yeah.
And it's like, even just that little bit there.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like, I do think what they're doing in this first episode really sort of subtly is setting up relationships between them and how they're going to evolve, because Ty and Shauna is one of the most interesting relationships in this show, and how it changes throughout time, and how they like are confidants. There's like the abortion scene later. There's all this stuff that happens between them. But in the beginning, they really don't seem to like each other.
No.
Like almost at all. I mean, like I think there's respect there, but they don't seem to really get along.
Yeah, and most of them talking to each other is like Ty calling Shauna out for being drunk at the party. Shauna calls Ty a sociopath in this first episode.
Yeah, they're really sniping at each other. But yeah, so then we get the beautiful Jersey skyline, the Garden State Parkway sign. We see Parkway Lanes, Asbury Park. Oh, it's beautiful.
We get the boardwalk.
It's so beautiful.
It's so nice.
I love it so much. It really, when I saw that, I was like, ooh, this is Sopranos, but like teen girl in the 90s.
Teen Sopranos.
Yeah.
It's like Muppet Babies, but...
But that montage really kind of pulled me in. And also, I mean, to start with like Smashing Pumpkins, it's so perfect of that time.
This does so much so fast.
Yeah.
And even if you're not from Jersey, it's just really great scene setting. Like I feel like you understand these girls and where they're from, and
and you also get a sense of, you know, the landscape and the variety of the landscape, like the fact that they're near the shore, that they're like in this sort of cookie cutter suburban area, but with like big New Jersey houses. Like you get a sense of the wealth disparity. You see I think it's the Elizabeth, like Newark area also coming in. So you do get a sense of, if you're looking carefully anyway, like we are, you do get a sense of the wide economic disparity in New Jersey that is also emphasized throughout this episode.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So much. You already, again, I don't know why I always feel the need to confess this, but you already mentioned off mic, and I'm sure we will talk about it plenty, not just in this episode, but moving forward, about all of the kind of like class dynamics that are set up in this pilot. That and we've talked about this before, and I know it's true everywhere, but it's so prevalent, and it's such a...
We just need a button that's like, New Jersey is a very densely populated place where people who have no money and people who have a lot of money are butted up right next to each other.
To a degree that is more significant and more... like more affecting is... I don't know if that's really the word I want, but like...
You're so aware of it because it's so close.
Exactly. And you see that played out so well in this pilot, specifically when everybody's leaving for nationals, which we'll get to shortly.
Yeah.
But it's already set up just in this beautiful montage.
Yeah, and even in the next section, like, because the next section is this is where I was like, oh, this show is also going to be funny because you know you've got the Jackie Jeff makeout scene. Mm-hmm.
Which I still, teenage boy, he at the very least...
He has no idea.
But it's 1996, he's like 17 years old.
Yeah.
And he is he's doing a terrible job, but he is trying.
He's trying so hard.
He really is
trying.
Well,
maybe not that hard, but he's trying.
He's trying, and he seems like he does, so he thinks he gets her off, and then he's like, okay, my turn. But he just seems so excited about all of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's actually quite sweet.
Yeah. Like... And he's the one who says, I love you first.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And we see her sort of exasperation with him a lot in this scene. She's like, okay.
And Jeff. Like,
I know. It also made me realize, like, she's very defensive about her relationship with him later on, but it really doesn't seem like she's that into him as a person.
Yeah, I don't think so.
She's just kind of like, this is my boyfriend.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This is where we see that he climbs out her window afterwards, and then we see Shauna in the car. And the size of Shauna's tiny-ass car, her little Toyota Celica or whatever the fuck that is, in front of Jackie's parents' like mansion.
Yeah.
Is pretty stark. I noticed it more on this watch, how small her car is in comparison and how old in comparison to the house.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny that Jackie doesn't have a car of, it's probably a strictness thing.
Yeah, I think it's implied that her parents are super strict.
Right. And maybe that's why she doesn't have a car of her own, because and she's got Shauna. She's got Shauna to drive her around. Jackie doesn't need a car.
She's got a chauffeur. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in my town, the kids that had those types of houses, their parents gave them their used Mercedes.
Right, exactly.
When they upgraded to a new car or their old BMW.
Oh, and then... Oh, that's when we learned, too, that Jackie and Shauna are apparently going to be going to Rutgers together.
Right, yeah.
That's where I really I go back and forth with Jackie, but or maybe I don't. I like Jackie. She's kind of an asshole in a way that I really like, when she's like freaking out because she sees that sign about the boys when the girls are going to nationals, and she's like honking Shauna's horn. And
yeah, no, I think we've talked about this a little bit in season 2, but I think we are set up to not like Jackie because she's the popular girl with the maybe questionable like insight into other people.
Right.
You know, she's very self-involved. But she's also like, as we find out later, like the one of them that has like the most of a conscience. Yeah. You know, that's not a sentence, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. She just feels very real to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, you know, it's not totally her fault. She's obviously coddled. She comes from like some level of money. Like she's not, it's not an excuse, but just like all of her stuff where she's like, oh, I've picked out a theme for our room at Rutgers. And as we know, Shauna has just been accepted to Brown. And do you think Shauna would have ended up going to Rutgers with Jackie though?
Oof. No, because Shauna is ultimately selfish.
It's interesting. Yeah, I wonder to what degree.
Even at that age, I think she had enough of a selfish streak that came out in the woods.
Huh. I'm not sure. Because I also think Shauna would like to be able to blame Jackie forever. And if she goes to Rutgers, she can... And as maybe we'll talk about, I think this watch through, I think Shauna...
she's definitely in love with Jackie.
Is more in love with Jackie than I thought maybe she was. Because if you listen to our season 1 recap, and we've talked about it a little bit, I think I thought the first time through, or I think I wanted to think that... This is not anti-queer of me as a queer person to say what I'm about to say. I think I wanted to think like, oh... She just had complicated feelings about her friend, and they had a very close relationship, and blah 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 blah. But she's definitely in love with Jackie, and but also is kind of, and because of that maybe is also really resentful of Jackie.
Yeah,
and I could see Shauna following her to Rutgers, being miserable the whole time. And you know what I mean? And getting to then blame Jackie forever.
I do totally get it. I just disagree.
She did end up wearing the boob dress.
I know. And
she threw a big fit about it.
Yeah. You've got good points. I acknowledge that.
But you think this is where her line is drawn?
I do. I think that she is like, we see her put herself first over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. She's sleeping with her best friend's boyfriend. Mm-hmm. Right? Because she wants to.
Right.
Because it makes
so much of it is in secret. So much of what Shauna does of putting herself first. I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
I think we're both right. I think we're both right. We're making arguments that can be both can be supported by the text, and in that way, I think we're both right.
Yeah.
But it's just like everything Shauna does where she puts herself first, I think, is in secret. Like even up through, what's her idiot boyfriend's name that she kills?
Adam.
Thank you. Adam Martin.
Yeah.
Like Martinez? Question?
No, we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
She's very good at like, even like Shauna, so much of her life is in secret, because even like the killing of the rabbit in 2021 and then secretly
making it into dinner.
That doesn't happen in this episode.
No, it doesn't. That's later. She does kill the rabbit in this episode, but we don't see her serve it to her family.
Yeah, I've been on a chicken kick.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I totally see your argument.
But how much of that is because of what ends up happening in the woods, right? Maybe she would have been a little more.
I just think that she's ambitious, and so. Like, she wanted Jeff. She's clearly going after Jeff. Jeff did not necessarily initiate this. Like, he may be fully in. He clearly wants to be doing this. But it just seems like...
But he even tries to take her home first later.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Poor Jeff.
Poor Jeff.
He really is just helpless, but trying his best, you know?
Yeah.
All along, for the last 30 years of his life or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. In my mind, if they don't crash, she goes to Brown. Jackie is shocked and hurt that she doesn't want her to go to Rutgers with her. And Shauna, like, moves on and finds the next Jackie at Brown, who's, like, you know, bubbly and sweet and friendly, and becomes her sidekick.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So then we meet Natalie and her little troublemaker friends, Kevin, and the one who I thought was Randy.
I did too. Because he has a very Randy vibe. Randy is his rising sign. Going with the metaphor that we've been using. Yeah. One of my favorite moments in the first episode is when they yell, "Show us your tits," and he's like, "Oh, if you really want me to." I knew that kid.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I knew both of those kids. They were my friends.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like,
I hung out with them.
I'm not Natalie, but, like, this was also my crew.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's, like, that was Tim and Scott and Chris, and we hung out behind the cafeteria and smoked cigarettes. Like, those are my guys. I knew these guys.
They're so likable, and obviously we know Kevin Tan plays a much bigger role. And now in season 2, he's the cop that Natalie reconnects with.
Yeah, but in this scene, it's just the three of them.
Elijah Wood. Isn't it amazing to know, watching this episode,
that Elijah Wood shows up later
and kills that young boy hanging out behind the... He poisons him. He feeds him poison hot chocolate.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin. In his Marilyn Manson t-shirt.
He's perfect.
Yeah.
God, I would have been so in love with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the other
and then
guy
I would have found
pager.
out he grew up to be a cop.
Tell me that is not the most fucking Jersey experience of your life.
Truly.
Like, this happened to me.
Yeah, I mean.
One of the guys that I hung out with in high school, or not in high school, in junior high, who was like a metalhead. I had a huge crush on him. Like, he turned into a cop.
Yeah. My 20-year reunion is this year.
Oh, wow.
And there's a Facebook group. And if you're somebody I went to high school with and you're listening for some reason, I did join the reunion group. I'm not going to the reunion, but I am obsessively reading all of your posts and just, boy, have I caught up on so many of you. And a handful of the kids I grew up with are cops now. It's interesting.
Well, and the difference is, like, I went to... nobody cares. I went to I lived in a lower income part of Jersey and then a higher income part of Jersey, and the lower income part of Jersey, those guys became cops. The higher income part of Jersey, those guys were stoners and they became insurance salesmen.
Right. That makes sense.
We then get the locker room scene with them singing Shoop, which is just so cute and so corny and cheesy and cringy.
And they don't know what's coming. This is where you really see, I said to you, and I wonder, as we watch, like, Shauna in Jersey, Shauna in the wilderness, not really that different. Like, her character progression makes a lot of sense. I think that's true for Natalie. I think that's true for a lot of them. Lottie feels so different.
Yeah.
And we know there's, like, part of it is she's unmedicated in the woods, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But, like, her... It feels almost like a different character from the second they crash down.
Yeah. It's so funny because thinking about this in terms of what we were talking about in the beginning about their planning for this season or for the whole show, actually, Van and Lottie both feel very flattened in this first episode. They feel like just avatars of a type of character.
Right.
Like, we get a little bit of their personalities and we get a little backstory. We see Van smacking her mother. We see Lottie in the empty dining room. But we don't see their personalities come out that much. And they could, in that first episode, you could see them going a number of different ways. And you can kind of see how they were like, oh, Van's not going to be a part of this later on.
Yeah, it's not surprising when we learn later that they hadn't planned for Van to make it to 2021.
Right.
I'm curious about what their plan was for
Lottie.
It feels to me, just in general, this pilot notwithstanding, and maybe I'll think differently as we get into later episodes in season 1, but just thinking what we know about season 1 and 2, it seems almost impossible to me that they wouldn't have been planning for Lottie to be around in 2021.
Yeah, although they hadn't cast anyone.
Right.
It's interesting. I do think
remember, like, who the fuck is Lottie Matthews? Mm-hmm. That's right. Season 1.
That's true. You're totally right. Yeah, no, you're right. I do think, though, that I feel, and this is based on nothing but just having watched this show and intuition, but I do think that they weren't quite sure how, when they were making season 1, how important Lottie was going to be in season 2. Maybe they were, but like it just feels like. But
also, knowing, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it feels like Lottie, at least in the beginning of season 1, was sort of a blank slate that they were waiting to kind of fill in as they went.
And it's interesting knowing, I hate to keep going back to this, but knowing that Juliette Lewis decided that she didn't want to be part of the show after season 2, but that Bart and Ashley were not necessarily prepared for that. Natalie's exit from the show is so intertwined with Lottie and Lottie's cult that I wonder if maybe that ended up having to be a bigger thing because they needed something to make sense for Natalie.
Right. Some way to make that plot point happen.
Right. Which they couldn't have been anticipating, or which they weren't anticipating when they were first writing Lottie. Right. So maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely noticed that, though, that both Van and Lottie feel, if not different from what they turned into, a little more blank. Like a little more open for interpretation going forward types of people. I do love her outfit, though. Her fuzzy sweater.
It's like they kind of like everybody has to be some sort of archetype here.
Yes.
And she's clueless. Like she's from that.
Yeah, and Shauna's a throwback to like Reality Bites. Jackie's like the popular girl in all of the teen movies. They all have like, Nat's the burnout. We've talked about this, but they all do have their like almost Breakfast Club or whatever archetypes going in. Starting out.
Breakfast Club.
Oh.
I don't know what time it was when they ate Jackie. I think it was dark out.
It was dark out, yes. Yes, although it could have been very, very early in the morning. We don't know. They woke up and the snow was falling.
That's a good point. She was slow cooked. Yes. So it might have been an all-night thing.
Yeah. Early breakfast. Gross.
Jackie.
Yeah. We get the like little bit of Allie before we kind of lose teen Allie forever. She's so annoying. Although teen Allie and grown-up Allie are so weird, like they don't connect in my brain.
Well, part of it is that one of them has
a Long Island accent,
the craziest accent you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah,
maybe she moved. Maybe when her leg exploded,
she moved to Long Island.
Yeah, and now she's back.
She ended up in like Babylon or Ronkonkoma or
right,
Huntington.
That would explain it.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, because, I mean, like, if you move somewhere in your late teens, early 20s, and you live there for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
20 years.
Pick the accent up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't sound like Bergen County anymore, I don't think. Well, occasionally I do. But, yeah. So we get the pep rally scene. We see Misty.
We get that speech from Coach, though.
Oh, about how Jackie has influence.
Yeah, because it's a trick. It's a dirty trick. They're setting us up to think that Jackie is gonna, like, be a leader in the wilderness,
right? And it turns out she does not have the influence that they think she does.
That's one of the scenes that makes me really like Jackie, because he's like, I made you captain. Like, Ty's got better footwork, or Shauna's faster, or whatever's got better. Blah blah blah. And she's like, is this a pep talk?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did like her in this scene, and I do think that we're being set up to kind of misdirect what we think
he
is going to
says
happen.
when things get tough out there, meaning on the field, but
Yeah.
these girls are going to need someone to guide them. Can you handle that?
Right. And she can't.
Right. Yeah.
She cannot. I also love the run out to Good Vibrations by Marky Mark. The music in this episode, man, I can't stop thinking about how well they did with like hitting those various points.
It is in that scene where Shauna and Jackie give each other the most lovelorn look
It's mostly coming from
both of
Shauna
them.
in that scene, though.
It's mostly coming from Shauna in that scene, but Jackie, I don't know.
Jackie knows that Shauna's in love with her.
At the very least, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I think you can see that there.
And I think you said this before we started officially recording, but basically the setup of Shauna and Jackie, at least in the beginning, is that Jackie is the popular girl who's dating the wrong boy, and Shauna is the boy next door / girl next door who's in love with her.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's just it's so much clearer now looking at it after seeing 2 seasons that like,
Right.
because we did have this conversation about the complicated nature of female friendship, but Shauna's in love with Jackie.
Yeah.
She also hates her.
Yeah.
But she's
It's,
in love with her.
the complicated nature
Yeah.
of female friendship.
Yeah.
But also,
Yeah.
I think it's so clear in a way that like, I always want to like push back on the easy reading of something like that. But it's, and I think that's probably what I was doing last year, but it's like, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
It's so obvious. And I wonder if the show wanted us to be thinking that maybe like, oh, if we get Jackie and Shauna out into the wilderness, you know, where they can be free, maybe they will fall in love.
Right.
But
right.
That's not Jackie and Shauna's story.
No. And Shauna has more of the hate in there, I think, than we're being led to believe in the beginning. Although we do see her kind of getting frustrated with Jackie really early when Jackie's trying to convince her to wear the red dress and
The boob dress.
and she does wear it, but reluctantly. Yeah, and so we also see the conversation about freezing out, quote unquote freezing out, Allie, before we find out that Ty is going to just take her out instead.
We get a lot of good character development here because Natalie is, not only does Natalie not want to do it, Natalie's pissed. She like won't even.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Which
we also. Oh, God.
We know how strong Natalie's like moral compass is, especially when she's younger. As an adult too, she's got a lot of stuff in the way of it, I think, in her adult years.
Also, her sense of justice.
Yeah.
Maybe she's a Libra. Like, she feels very strongly that things need to be fair and just.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you see that there. Somebody says, there's a line, I don't know who says it, but I wrote down one of them saying, like, well, everything works until it doesn't, which is such a, like, good, like, this, like, just thinking of them in the woods with the, like, kind of, like, social breakdown.
Yeah.
And Shauna here, too. This is one of the moments where Ty and Shauna, because Ty proposes whatever, and Shauna says, Jackie's not going to like it.
Right.
And then Ty says, well, we probably shouldn't tell her.
Yep.
And Shauna, again, Shauna's kind of the only one who's actively on board with it, as long as it can be a secret from
Jackie. I think we're also kind of seeing this fight for leadership, right? Like, we've got Jackie as the anointed leader by the adults, but then we see the real leadership is actually kind of fighting back and forth between like Nat, Ty, and Shauna.
Totally. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So then we get the fatal blow to Allie's leg.
Ugh.
Yeah, gross. I had to put my hand up again. I can't watch that shit.
It's really...
No bones protruding for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, compound fracture is a big fear of mine. We also get, and this is such a little thing, but it's a little thing that we've been speculating about all the way through, and it's the first mention of it. It's our dear sweet Coach Ben is the one running practice because Coach Martinez had to take care of a, quote, family thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I also noticed later on in this episode when they're getting ready to leave again, I clocked the whole like relationship between Coach and his wife looking super
there's
strained, and Travis
something.
looking upset. Like, something happened there.
I wonder if Travis wasn't. Do we know? Was Travis even supposed to?
Was he supposed to be there today?
Yeah, thank you. My brain totally went offline. Totally. The second I started
He
to
wasn't
say
even
that,
supposed to be there today.
like, I wonder if whatever happened between Coach and his wife also led to
Them
the kids
going.
having to go with him.
Maybe. Yeah, I wondered that too. Yeah.
We just don't know.
Yeah, well, I wonder if they're going to get to that, because I do kind of feel like that whole storyline fell by the wayside in season 2. Nobody seems to care like about the Coach and his family, but
I do wonder.
But like, it's related to Travis and Javi and all of that.
Well, yeah, it's what I think happened is Coach Martinez found out that his wife had another child, which for some reason his last name is Martin because it's like Martinez.
We're not doing that.
You know how like when you have a kid out of wedlock that your husband doesn't know about, he has you
alter the name by 2 letters.
By 2 letters.
That's such a classic thing that everybody does.
It totally happens.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
They just found out.
Yeah, no.
Possibility. I'm going to put a pin in that one.
Okay. I think probably maybe he was cheating on her. That's probably more.
Oh, and then maybe he got somebody pregnant. That makes more sense. You're right. You're so right.
I was not
and then
saying
the woman
that
he got pregnant, she thought for some reason maybe he gave her a fake name, and she thought his last name was.
I'm seeing
Martin.
the red string.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think one of the things we may have to accept is that they're going to let the Adam Martin thing go.
Yeah,
we're just not going to know.
I kind of hope they do. Except, well, let's wait because
we got a lot to talk about with Adam later.
With Javi's illustrations, this episode cannot be. Also, how hilarious! Remember when we first started? I made the promise that our episodes would never be as long as the episodes of the show itself.
That promise never materialized.
We're an hour
Not one
in.
time.
We're an hour in.
I know.
Okay.
Apparently, we don't have a problem filling time. Yeah. So we see the leg break and
Misty. This is our first real. Well, we see Misty before that at the pep rally, like you said. But this is where Misty really shines.
Well, she's trying to run in and do her babysitter's training, and nobody wants her to do it in this case.
No, of course not.
Little do they know how useful she can be.
That's right.
She's going to show them.
Ben is like, he says, this is such another little thing, but it jumps out every time. He says there's a phone in Bill's office, and she says, "You mean Coach Martinez? Because teachers don't have first names."
Right. Yes.
He's like, yeah.
Maybe they were having an affair.
Oh, Ben could do so much better than Coach Martinez.
And he was, as we find out later. So.
Oh, Ben.
I know.
Wait, he's still alive, as far as we know.
In 96, yeah.
Yeah, because he's burned down the cabin and is hiding in the woods, probably in that cave that
But we've never seen him in 2021.
That's a good point. Well, no, if you watch the episode where they go to the cult, to the retreat, and they show the crowd.
Are you playing the personification of Reddit in this episode?
Yeah, there is one guy who it looks like he maybe only has one leg. He's got a big beard. So it'd be hard to tell. That's probably Ben.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense that he would have followed Lottie once they got back. I think that's probably Ben.
You are that Always Sunny meme right now. Like, I just see it behind you, all of the...
I know I'm talking shit, but I need our listeners... If you found us through Reddit, which I know a lot of our listeners did, I need you to know I am one of you.
Oh,
Off mic. Off mic, I'm 100%. One of you.
100%.
And please remember, I was obsessed with Lost.
Oh, gosh.
I was Lost's #1 fan. I like the series finale. So I'm here. I'm here with you people. Ben is that guy at the cult. Adam Martin. See? Ooh, what a slip. Anyway, where were we?
Yes. No, I do think that the people that found us from Reddit probably know that we are them and that we greatly love, need, and respect all of their takes because we also are looking at what color someone's shirt was and,
And who's wearing what necklace and what Chuck Taylors and...
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We've got the prep for the party, which we kind of talked about already, where they have the dress conversation.
Jackie sort of tries to... What do you think is going on with that conversation where Jackie says, like, oh, Randy wanted to know if you're going to be at the party?
So I think that is classic popular girl.
That's Mean Girls, right?
It's classic Mean Girls, classic popular girl trying to set up her less popular friend with the less popular guy.
Oh, do you think she was? I thought it was popular girl can't help but be mean to people, even their best friend. Because it's like
that.
She knows, first of all, that Sean is not interested in Randy. Second of all, that Randy is Randy.
Terrible. Yeah.
He does dedicate that to you, sexy lady.
I love Randy.
I love Randy, but
yeah, no, so my read on it was less the mean part and more the completely blind to her pretty girl privilege with her pretty boy boyfriend and like just kind of being like, well, why wouldn't you want to date Randy? You're like Randy.
That's so
you know?
That's funny too. I really was like, oh, this is when I decided. I was like, Jackie knows that Shauna is in love with her to some degree or has feelings for her and can't help but be a little mean.
See, I think this is where my later understanding of Jackie has colored the way I view this, because I think I probably thought that originally, but now I have this rosier view of Jackie as like the one pure soul that didn't like go nuts and take out everyone else in the woods.
But is it because in the way that like Shauna doesn't change that much because she's already dark and kind of mean and selfish to begin with, Jackie was able to stay Jackie because she already had let some of her meanness, she was already letting a little bit of her poison out before the island.
It's possible.
The island.
Yeah, I know. It happens. I think it's possible, but I also think that in that scene, I read it more as actual innocence to what she was doing.
Right. Which is still not great.
No.
Because you're also so right that she's like, obviously, Randy is the less popular, less cool one.
Friend
and you also are the less popular. It's very social,
hierarchy.
Yeah.
It's also selfish in that Jeff and Randy are best friends. And so...
Oh, that's such a good
kind of like, well, why wouldn't I want my best friend to date my boyfriend's best friend so that we could all hang out together all the time?
How convenient for all of us.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it would make sense for her if Randy and Shauna got together, because then her social circle would just be easier.
Right.
Yeah. I also just want to shout out Shauna's room. We've talked about it before. We don't have to talk about it again. But like, she's so like grunge chick, Nirvana poster, Blind Melon, like,
and she's like, her room is in their attic.
Yeah.
So she's got the
this eaves.
For some reason, even that screams like 90s alt like grunge teen to me.
Yep. Yep. It could have been a basement. They probably made it an attic because it had better light. Like, yeah, it's just perfect.
Yeah. Remember when you tried to become Catholic?
I like the saints. They were so tragic. Yeah. That's also very witchy girl. The like connection between like Catholicism, the saints, and witches is like not that far of a jump.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It's a continuum.
Absolutely.
And we're at a party in the woods. I love this party. This is high school. This is Jersey high school.
It's such a good high school party. So a couple of things for the party that we again see Jackie set up to be the leader because everybody starts bickering about Allie. This is when Ty says someone needs to take Shauna's drunk ass home. Shauna calls Ty a sociopath. And that's when Jackie, I think probably encouraged by the conversation she just had with Coach Martinez, calls all the girls in, makes them all say something nice about each other. My favorite moment that I noticed this time is before they go off, Van refills her cup first.
So, do you know why this is important?
No.
Do you know why this is important? Okay, it's not a conspiracy thing. It is a show lore thing. So I read that. That moment was an improv. And it's one of the reasons they really fell in love with Van and were like, this person has to stay.
We're keeping Liv.
And so, like, that is part of the show lore, is that moment is important. So, we also have one of my favorite Nat lines ever when she says to Lottie, I like your pilgrim hat.
And I like your pilgrim hat.
Oh, and also when Laura Lee goes around and starts saying to everyone, "You are beautiful in the eyes of the Lord."
The Lord.
I love Laura Lee. I miss
me
her.
too.
She's
She
such
has
a
really
pure
shiny
soul.
hair.
She does have very shiny hair. That's a very 90s girl haircut, by the way.
Yeah.
That, like, blonde bob, straight, thin, no bangs, no nothing, just, like, shoulder length. That's a very soccer player 90s haircut, too.
I'm thinking of two girls in particular I went to school with who were soccer players who had that exact haircut.
Yeah, the one in my school was named Erin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, okay. All right, we're almost
there.
to the end here of...
We're almost to the plane.
Of 96. This is when... I gotta stop saying poor Jeff. Jeff is giving Jackie and Shauna rides home. He tries to take Shauna home first. Jackie says...
What if our hot take in our recap of season 1 is that we feel sorry for mediocre white men? That's our new...
Well, I mean, the most unbelievable thing about the show is how harmless and likable all of the men are in it. But we've talked a lot about
and
all
his
of that.
wife guy energy.
That was a really dismissive way to say a thing that I do sort of believe. So Jackie gets Jeff to take her home first. She says, like, I've got a curfew. And Shauna's like, I do too.
Yep.
Jackie says, but you know what my parents are like, so.
Yeah. I also want to just reiterate that we've never met Shauna's parents.
Yeah.
We don't see them in season 1 or 2. We don't see them in 96. We don't see them in 2021. It's kind of implied that her parents care less than Jackie's or are less strict.
Right. Yeah, who knows? And based on the way Jackie, like, I'm sure Jackie's not thinking like, oh, it could also be bad for Shauna, or oh, Shauna's parents are also this way, or oh, like what Jackie says gives us no information about Shauna's home life at all. And then Shauna makes Jeff pull over, and they have sex for at least the second time, because he says, I thought we weren't going to do this again. She says, again. We're not again. She also has the line that we all love so much.
Oh, I have it.
Yep.
Shauna says, if you come inside of me, I will raise the baby out of spite and train it to become a killing machine that eventually hunts you down.
So that's Callie. As we all know.
Oh, God.
That is 30-year-old Callie.
Math doesn't math there, but...
But we do know that he does get her pregnant. We also know that the baby, at this point now, remember... It was such a huge... We watched... Like, part of the reason we watched Rosemary's Baby is because we were so obsessed with what was going to happen with Shauna's baby. We had so many conversations about whether or not that kid made it off the... all of that. And this is a show that killed a baby.
Yep. Which is the thing I was like, they're not going to make us look at a dead baby. They are. I mean, at least they didn't eat the baby, but...
Right.
Yeah.
So we know that Shauna, and it's here, this is when Shauna gets pregnant with Jeff's baby, who dies in the wilderness.
Yeah. I know, we spent so much of watching this show not knowing where that was going to end up, and now watching the beginning of it is kind of like, oh.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Like another great needle drop here also. After this, we get the montage, and we see we hear Never Tear Us Apart.
Yeah. You know what's funny? And it's the cover. It's the Paloma Faith cover, which is, I love that, the original anyway. I think that's a great song. That cover is outstanding. In my head, they didn't start with the kind of anachronistic covers so early, but they were doing that right from the...
Yeah, you're right.
Because we have that Florence and the Machine, Just a Girl in season 2 that is outstanding. And there might be one or two others.
There are. I have the music list somewhere, but yeah, there are.
But they're just outstanding.
Yeah.
And this one is so good. And we get a lot of information quickly. This is where you already mentioned it, but Liv's mom is passed out. Misty, we see Misty watching the rat in the pool. I just realized as I was watching it today that in my head, I said I watched it last night. I watched it this morning. We got a late start today, so I got a little confused. But this morning when I was watching it, I was like, Oh, I have just assumed Misty is in someone else's backyard.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why.
That's even more
I've just
weird and deviant.
Yeah, I think that's. I think she strikes me as somebody who wouldn't have an in-ground pool.
But I think that actually that's an interesting part of her character is that I think she's a sociopath that has rich parents with a pool. There's also been intimations, I don't know if it's canon or not, that like one of her parents is a doctor. Like that's kind of why she has all of this sort of medical
Weird,
affinity.
Like,
you know?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's her backyard.
Yeah.
I don't know why in my head all along. I was like, why? And I don't even know what made me think about it.
That's so funny.
Like,
I love the
pull
idea
back
of
a
Misty
layer.
just kind of hanging out in random people's yards.
Yeah,
see
like
it.
in my head, maybe she found the rat and put it in. I don't think this. I think she came upon the rat and watched it die. But
She could have just put it in the pool to see if it would swim.
But she like found a rat and needed a pool to drown it in, you know?
I mean, if she's close enough to like, oh, now we're going to get into rat logistics again. But if she was close enough to a house with a pool to like walk over with a rat to watch it drown, then her parents also were rich because
That's a good point.
because
too.
like wealth and poverty are closely linked in New Jersey, but like next to a mansion is not like a shack.
Though we had an in-ground pool in my.
But this is a fancy looking in-ground pool. Like you feel
That's
like there's
true.
a large house behind it that you don't see.
Behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm picturing is like some random person like looking out their back window, drinking their cup of coffee, and then just seeing that neighborhood weirdo Misty just watching a rat drown in their pool.
That's fair. So during this montage, we see Coach. This is where we see that scene where like things are weird and intense with his wife.
Ty has great parents.
Yes. Most important thing, have fun.
Have fun.
We find out that they're going to get on a private plane that Lottie's dad paid for. We see Lottie with her bottle of loxapine, which obviously has been much analyzed since. They get on the plane, and one of my favorites is when Mari offers tequila fruit by the foot. Yeah. She like psychs her out.
She's got like a mile of it.
Yeah.
My favorite part is when Travis says, "Nuh-uh, butt
Yes.
munch." When Javi tries to sit with him.
The use of the phrase butt munch is so 90s.
Munch. I'm bringing butt munch back.
I mean,
I'm 30 or 40 years old, and I think I'm bringing butt munch back.
I support this. I definitely clocked that last night. I was like, that's such a 90s thing to say.
So funny. Nuh-uh, butt munch.
Yeah. It was great. We also get the pilot overhead talking about how they're going to have to divert because of a storm. They'll be able to see the Canadian Rockies. We get all that sort of set up for the crash.
We see a couple of the red shirt girls in this scene.
There's more of them than I remembered.
Yeah. Yeah, there are quite a few. And Jackie Steele's, this is also a very good rich 90s mom that like Jackie was able to steal some Valium from her. But that's thoughtful because she knows Shauna's afraid to fly.
Yeah. And so they both take that and pass out.
Well, and Jackie, so important. Jackie gives her the necklace.
Yes. And then we start the endless
so maybe
tracking
Shauna's
the necklace.
Pit girl.
Yeah, says nothing can touch you now, puts the necklace on her. And then the next thing we see is like the plane starting to go down and people freaking out, Laura praying. Yeah. And that's the end of 96.
That's the end for 96 in Jersey. We get a tiny little bit of the wilderness, which we'll touch on at the very end, I think.
Yeah. I love this little beginning.
Yeah, I love this little beginning. This is also one of those things where it's just like my little brain. In my head, every time I've watched this pilot before this week, which I think, again, is only twice, because we didn't really have a feel for Jessica Roberts yet, she doesn't really exist in that montage to me, even though we do see her.
Yeah, we do.
And I thought, which doesn't make sense at all, but in my head, we were watching it's because of the way they're talking directly to us. Like, they're talking to, but in my head, they were like talking heads for a documentary.
That's what it feels like.
Which I know which I don't know. I'm guessing maybe now that I'm talking about it with you, that's what the feeling is supposed to be, because Jessica's job is to see if people will spill for it. So I guess that's the feeling, but it really does feel like, but we do see Jessica in that scene. She asks one of them a direct question there.
Right. Yeah.
So what do you think really happened out there? I think is
right. We also get the trig teacher,
which
again, break out the red string.
This one has a little bit of not necessarily validity, but in a way that a lot of the stuff that we've been jokingly speculating about in season 1, there's nothing to back it up later.
Right.
There is some stuff that's like, we have all of that stuff with the underground, with possibly the underground mines and the different tools from the person who owned the cabin, who we think is a surveyor.
Possibly.
Right?
It's Bonaduce.
That's right. And so like all of that, it's still, I don't know that line is necessarily for no reason.
Right. It could be, or it could not be, but there's a number of mentions of trigonometry, right? Like there's this teacher, there's also then Shauna in the same episode asks if Callie's going to be able to retake her trig test. Like, so we get all those little interviews, and then we sort of in a weird mirror to Jackie and Jeff.
Yeah.
Which I hadn't really thought about, but we see Shauna masturbating to her daughter's boyfriend, which is
yeah, it's bad in her daughter's room, like all of it is, but it's also like we always talk about how much this show is really about like women and trauma, right? That she's so, of course, is so stunted. It's not an excuse. You should not be masturbating to a 17-year-old boy who is your daughter's boyfriend in her bedroom, of course.
Yes.
It is not to say that, but it makes a kind of sense that Shauna, especially when, she's so stuck, and her husband was not her high school boyfriend, really, because high school is kind of over for her. But like I can imagine that she's thinking like, oh, what would it have been like for me to have a normal high school relationship with So
we also get some classic sort of clothing echoes here. She's like wearing the same kind of flannel that she wore in high school, similar clothing. Her daughter's room is extremely pink, sort of like looks a lot like Jackie's. There's like all these little...
Callie, especially knowing Callie more now and loving her so much.
Yeah.
Callie really is... She's so much more like if Jackie and Shauna had a kid. than it is if Shauna and Jeff had a kid.
Yeah, because her room makes no sense with her personality.
No.
She's pretty dark and sarcastic and very much like her mother that way. But her bedroom looks like a Jackie bedroom.
Well, and is it then that Shauna is the one who maybe... I could see Callie being the kind of person who's like, I don't know, this is the room my mom decorated for me and I don't care. And Shauna's just trying to make a little Jackie. We see season 1 later in the season... when Callie puts on
Jackie's uniform.
Soccer uniform.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
She's like haunted.
Yeah, she is.
Then we get our girl Jessica Roberts, who I'm sure I've said is also from Battlestar Galactica.
You have. You have said this.
She's so good and so beautiful, and I love her.
Yes.
And I mean, she's lying, but she's a reporter for the Star Ledger, so...
We got our,
Okay, Jersey.
Yep. She's trying to get Shauna to tell her side of the story. We find out later that she's not actually a reporter from the Star Ledger, but she is trying to test Shauna, and among all of them, really, to see who will talk. Just as a reminder for those who aren't as, again, in the weeds as we are, she was hired by Ty to sort of like see who is going to be a problem for Ty's Senate campaign.
Yeah, which we don't find out at all. And I thought we found this out later in this episode, but it's later in the season that we really find that out. So
Right. We also see, I noticed this time, I don't know if I'd seen it before, I think I had, the Us magazine cover that she pulls out of the grocery bag that says, there's a little corner headline that's like, about the crash 25 years later. It says like Little Girls Lost. So I think it's like an indication that they're still newsworthy.
Right. Right, and Jessica says, like, I could offer you a 7-figure deal, and she's just talking shit. But Shauna's not, shocked by that number.
No.
It's not like, oh, I'd never thought about that. She's probably
Right.
been offered similar deals
Certainly.
many times.
Yeah.
She's, like, not surprised that Jessica's there. She's just
Right.
annoyed, like...
Right.
And even when she and Ty meet at the diner a little later, Ty says, like, oh, every few years these people come out of the woodwork.
Right. And especially because 25 is like an important milestone. Like this is the 25th year, blah,
Exactly.
blah, blah.
One little thing, and this could mean this is just a tiny little dialogue thing, but when Shauna says, like, there's no story to tell, we crashed, we scavenged, some of my friends, blah, blah, blah. She says, until they finally found us.
Yes.
And we've speculated that maybe the, like, trig stuff and all of that is that, like, actually they were much closer to civilization than they thought, but none of them knew how to, and that eventually they would find their way.
Right.
That, like, maybe there would be an adventuring party. You know, Natalie had been out adventuring, and we kind
Right.
of, I'm saying we, I don't know who the we is in this, but, like, I think some of us are thinking that, like, Natalie's going to be the one to save them by, like...
Well, because Ty does say at some point we wouldn't be here without Natalie. And so that's implied that somehow, but that could be like a psychological thing.
But I also think it's a leadership thing now, too,
Yeah.
because... But, so all of that, but the phrasing of until they finally found us, which, again, might mean nothing, but this time I was like, oh, I wonder if they eventually do get... It's a more active rescue than it is
Right.
them, like, escaping and finding help.
Right.
But who knows? That's, again, that could be anything. That's not...
Yeah. Yeah, but we do know that, like, if there's one thing they know when they're making this pilot is probably how they're found. Mm-hmm. You know?
Right,
like,
right.
that's a pretty important thing to know from the beginning is, like, how does the rescue go down?
Exactly.
So, yeah. Then we see Nat at the rehab in her purple sweater, meditating.
I know that you and I have decided that one of the things we are not totally interested in is who is the Antler Queen, because it seems that has, like, it shifts maybe.
Yeah.
It is a traveling, but
The traveling antlers.
exactly. Shauna says, like, you know, until they found us. And then that's when we see Natalie for just a second. She's, like, out meditating. Somebody comes out to say, like, groups, whatever. Then the very next scene is that flashback to the wilderness where the person in the antler seat gives the okay that it's time to feed. And I think we know now that Natalie is the one. It was kind of like I think most of us were thinking that was probably Lottie.
Yeah.
In that position at first.
Yeah.
For really most of seasons 1 and 2. But it seems now that's very likely Natalie because she's been given.
Right.
Like, they all bow to her in the season 2 finale.
Right.
And it seems like this scene is like the winter after that. They've all been out in the woods for a while. And it seems like that's a little hint that actually that's Natalie there.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about the back and forth between the two timelines, that flip there, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
Especially because it's such a quick scene.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and
like
then we
why jump
yeah.
back right there to it. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we go right back to Natalie at the group. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
that group scene is so good.
Yeah. We also have Shauna watching trivia.
You dumb bitch.
Linda,
Right?
you
Is that
dumb
what she calls
bitch.
her? Linda, you dumb bitch.
I love it. There's just something about... This is going to make me sound like an asshole. There's something so relatable about, like, watching trivia of some kind, like watching Jeopardy, which is what she's supposed to be, like, theoretically kind of watching. And, like, just judging the people for getting questions wrong. Like, it's just such a...
Well, and especially because, like, I'm sure there were lots of other questions
Yeah.
Shauna didn't know.
Yeah.
But she, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it is,
and the
like,
answer is Paradise Lost.
The answer is Paradise Lost. Mm-hmm. The answer is Paradise Lost. The one that the woman suggests or guesses is Great Gatsby.
Right.
Do we hear what the question is?
I don't know.
I feel like maybe they mentioned Milton. Because it's also like, if they say Milton, then Linda is a dumb bitch, but also Shauna's not that smart for knowing Paradise Lost. Like, that's...
I don't
you know
remember
what,
what the question was. I kind of want to know.
But it's another thing of, like, you know, Shauna thinking she's so smart. She did get into Brown and how Stud did, and now she's this, you know.
Yes.
And that and here's an example. She's so smart. She knows who wrote Paradise Lost. But Paradise Lost is a great little illusion here, right?
This is like some sort of blog, but it basically says the first words out of Shauna's mouth are "I am Paradise Lost," which is interesting.
Pretty good.
I don't think I've read Paradise Lost.
The like famous line that even if you haven't read Paradise Lost, you might recognize is the mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. And you know how much of this, especially in season 2, becomes like what stories are the girls telling themselves about where they were? And there's all that speculation that there's not all that speculation. There's some speculation like, oh, how much of what we're watching in 96 is real and how much. And so thinking about, there's also better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven, which is...
Yeah.
Just thinking about like Shauna.
She probably has a tattoo of that somewhere.
I do like though that implies that New Jersey is heaven and that the wilderness is hell, which is what I say that all the time.
All the time,
you know?
yeah.
I'm always saying
that's your general philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We also see the ad for Ty's candidacy come on while she's watching it. That's where we see that Ty's running for state senate.
Right. That's why Shauna's watching TV. Or for the show, the reason they have a scene with her watching TV in the first place is so she could see Ty running for state senate.
Yep. And then we meet Ty's family as well with the photo shoot happening. They call her the queer Kamala.
Kamala? Here's something that really jumped out this time for me is we know now about other Ty.
Yes.
That we think is manifested in the woods. Though we know that her family has some kind of darkness because her grandmother saw ghosts and men with no eyes and all of that.
Yep.
We don't know for sure, but we can maybe think here's what we know about other Ty. Other Ty shows up when shit needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
For example, is it possible that it's actually other Ty who took Allie out? That Ty, in her wise mind, in her calm mind, wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Right? She seems pretty shocked afterward.
Yeah.
Other Ty has an expression, and we see it in the scene around the fire at the end of season 2 really, really clearly. We see it a few times, but that's like the best one. If you go to our Instagram, there's one of the clips that I made back from the season 2 finale shows it up close.
Yeah.
She also makes that face. It's the like, hey, I'm here. I'm doing what I need to do. She also makes that face very clearly. It is a close up right after she gets, what's her wife's name?
Simone. Right?
Right after she gets Simone to like calm down enough to get good pictures. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about, I'm talking a lot right now, but we've talked a lot about their relationship and how Ty really, because we know she loves Van now, right? Mm-hmm. And that she cheats on Simone while Simone is in a coma with Van.
Yeah.
And it's like, they seem so in love here, but they're doing that photo shoot and Simone can't like relax enough to get some good pictures, and Ty's like getting a little, and then Ty is like very sweetly, she's like, what would help you ease up? You want a shot of tequila? Should we have a quickie in the bathroom? And it seems really sweet at it, but it does get Simone to relax. They get their shots, and then you see her face, and I'm like, man, that is devious. It's devious because it's
that's
like
a solid point.
How much of that was Ty just being like, this is what Simone needs right now. I don't really care.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and we don't know enough about her at this point to really see that, but looking back, it definitely.
But they give
they do a real close up on her face at that moment,
and she's got specific other Ty eyes that she makes.
Yeah,
and it's
fucking Tawny Cypress, man.
She's so good, but it is 100%. That is my feeling is that is other Ty for sure.
I think I am on board. I am on board. We're also sort of
which makes me feel even worse for Simone.
I know,
because it's like
Simone is just.
It's not just that like the worst reading of it is it's not just that Ty was in love with Simone, Van came back into her life, or she came back into Van's life, and now she's making bad choices. It's almost like Ty is doing what she told herself she would do. You know what I mean? She found a wife who works for her image and for the story she wants to be told about her. Yeah. And has never really loved her. You know, like, yeah. I don't know.
I could buy
Maybe
that
it's
version.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah, it probably is, but I feel like you know, I don't see a lot of pure moments of Ty appreciating Simone. It's a lot of like managing her.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly
trying
right.
to
That's
like
exactly
control
right.
her reactions.
Yeah. But I would have thought this scene up until this last watch felt to me like, oh, there is some sweetness here, but probably not.
Yeah. It also, when you look at it from that perspective, does feel like she's managing her again.
Mm-hmm. It's a bummer.
Poor Simone.
I know.
I hope that she comes out of her coma and like wreaks havoc on the, you know, Ty and her
that would
friends.
be kind of amazing because she knows at least that there is a dead dog in her home. Poor Biscuit.
Yes, she does. I know.
Right, that's Biscuit.
We saw live. Yeah, we saw live Biscuit in this episode when they were having their photo shoot.
That's right.
Got our first Biscuit sighting when his head and his body were connected.
Oh no!
Poor guy.
Oh boy.
Our version of Nat in this timeline is the rehab, leaving the rehab, flying back to Jersey to get her car with the rifle in it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of it.
They set her up like she could be a murderer. It's so funny knowing Nat now.
Well, she has the line, I think it will be good to reconnect with some old friends while she's like hiding the gun. Like,
yeah. And you could see like they almost want you to think that guy is in danger while they're having that conversation. It's all also total side little thing in that group therapy. Her therapist, the like group leader, is wearing a Livestrong bracelet.
Yes,
it's 2021.
Yes, he is. I noticed that too.
Funny.
Yes.
It's such a good detail.
I also really like Wendy.
Oh, Wendy's great.
Apparently slapping this numb cunt was incorrect and also misdemeanor assault.
She is straight out of 96.
She's got Jersey mom energy.
Big time Jersey mom energy. That
even
jacket,
though they're in California.
Yeah, that jacket. I know. That's a really good point because I have thought of her name is Wendy.
I know.
Like Bruce. Like that. Wendy is such a Jersey coded name.
Yeah, it is. One of my closest friends growing up around the corner was named Wendy.
Of course.
Yeah. She lived on First.
I just thought that was...
Yeah. And that refers to keeping the tiger in the cage and finding her purpose in that moment. After they rescued us, I lost my purpose.
Keep the tiger in the cage, like that's a saying that they were like
a Jersey tomato.
Like a Jersey tomato. You know how hard it is for a Jersey tomato to keep a tiger in the cage.
Exactly.
She does say, thanks to my time here, I know how to get it back, referring to her purpose. Mm-hmm. We don't
really know what that means.
No, we still don't, right?
No, I don't think so.
Anything about it. The thanks to my time here is a weird.
Yeah.
Like maybe because she I guess like I'm clear headed and sober now is the easy way.
Right.
Maybe that's just what she means.
Probably what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
But what do we think we know everything we're ever at this point. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not true because there's still stuff in 2021. At this point, we know where Natalie's story ends.
Yeah.
And we still don't know. And I think we've seen everything we're going to see of Natalie in 2021 unless they flash back to some stuff. Right.
But we might see Natalie when she gets back. We might see there's like 25 years in between. So.
But she knows what her purpose is now in this group. And then between there and the season 2 finale, when she dies, somewhere in there, you'd think we find her like living out her purpose. And I don't think we do.
In my mind, what she means in that moment is that she has to find Travis. Because that is where she goes from there. And so maybe her purpose is to find Travis, help Travis. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing, but that's what she's doing next. She's going, that's actually not what she's doing next. She's going to Misty, but she's going to Misty to find Travis, I think.
Right. And I think she's going to Misty because she got the postcard. And she thinks, we don't see that. We don't see that in this episode. But what we do know is someone is sending postcards with the symbol on them to the girls, or to the women. And I guess this is never spelled out directly, I don't think. But Natalie receives the postcard, assumes it's from Misty because Misty's crazy. And Misty, as we know, is the one who like kind of really thrived out in the wilderness and is the reason, maybe, that they weren't rescued right away because we know, destroyed the black box or the transmitter, whatever.
Yeah.
We're still, that's still a little confusing to me. I don't know how
One of
planes
the big
work.
questions that has come up from watching Yellowjackets for its fans is what the fuck is a black box and what's a transmitter? What do they do and how do you ruin one? This is like a central mystery for the fans of the show.
That probably we could figure out.
Yes.
We should, but at least Natalie, right? This is her understanding of Misty. And so when this postcard shows up, she goes to Misty because she's sure that Misty sent it.
So maybe that's her purpose, is like to take care of Misty.
Right.
You know?
In whatever way she's going to.
I mean, that would also
do that.
kind of go along with what we were saying earlier about how Nat and Misty are linked from the beginning by this first episode.
That's
like maybe
true
her
too.
purpose is to take care of Misty and that she's derailed by the fact that Misty also has the postcard.
Right.
And
Do we
Misty is
know-
just manipulative.
Did Jeff send the postcards or do we not know?
Oh, do not open this Pandora's box. If
Should
we
wait
want,
a little
if we
till we
want
get a little
anyone
more?
from the Reddit to listen to us and like have any faith in us, we cannot open this box right now because there are arguments, real, like hardcore arguments about this. I have an opinion.
But we don't have a fact where Jeff out loud said, I'm the one who sent the postcards.
We don't have that, but according to many of our friends on Reddit, it is decided that he did. It has been proven that he did. I may or may not agree with that. I'm not gonna upset people yet.
I think and some of it, please know that so much of this is just my memory being bad. I think I keep saying the story we're telling ourselves, which is absolute therapy speak, but also applies here because it's an actual story, is that he sent them as part of the
blackmail.
Blackmail.
Yep.
Okay.
I am
But
not going to
either
get
way,
into it.
Misty probably definitely didn't send them.
Correct.
Okay.
It's possible still. Anything is possible, but
We'll save it. We'll save it for when they actually show up at in the show.
because there's a lot to discuss there.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Or at least that maybe Natalie's purpose, as it always has been, is to protect this story and these people from the outside world, but also from each other and themselves, you know?
Yeah. I think that can be interpreted a number of ways, but I think the fact that she goes directly to Misty does tie her purpose to Misty.
I think so too. That's cool. Okay.
Speaking of Misty, we have the diner scene, and then we have a scene of Misty, and then Shauna reading her journals. Those are kind of our last 3 2021 scenes. Well, I skipped over the fact that she murders that bunny, which we've talked about, but she kills it with an axe handle, I think, and gets blood on her, and, you know.
We know it's no big deal for her. She's our butcher.
She's also got those little rabbit figurines everywhere.
I love Shauna.
Which we've talked about. If you express interest in an animal once in your life, there will be somebody who will continue to give you those animal figurines, and it's Jackie's parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she does kill that rabbit. It's been eating her garden, but it's obviously no big deal for her because she's been like butchering animals and people.
She's very good at it.
She's good at it. It's her job. So it's not, and it's so obvious that she's the butcher in those little flashback scenes from the beginning, but we don't get full confirmation of that until a little later in the series.
Right.
But that's obviously who that is.
Yeah.
She kills the rabbit. We know that she is going to feed it to her family, though we don't know that yet in this episode. But we do get, this is where we get introduced to Callie. I think I was too hard on her even before I knew how much she grows on me later. She's just a teen, and Shauna is annoying.
Teenager. Yeah, they're both annoying.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah,
because she's right. Because she's like, you have a meaningful conversation, and then she's like, so we're having meatloaf.
Right.
It's like,
yeah, that's a fair point.
Callie, I get it, Callie.
That's a fair point.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, I guess since we're back on Shauna, maybe we talk about the diner. Oh, but you wanted to have a diner conversation. Do you want to talk about Misty first?
Whatever you think.
Let's just briefly touch on our little introduction to adult Misty, because it's very brief. Mm-hmm. But we see her working in the nursing home, bringing meds to Mrs. DeGennaro.
Mm-hmm. My 8th grade English teacher, Mr. DeGennaro, shout out.
Amazing, of course. And we see her first as this little sweet woman, like coming in and talking to this woman who can't respond. But then we see her true colors when she realizes that. What does she find out?
That she
wet the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
And didn't call Misty, and Misty says, like, oh, you should have called, blah, blah, blah. She also slaps the food. This is not to defend Misty. But that woman is being contentious.
Yes, and in my mind, she's being contentious because she's had to deal with Misty for God knows how long.
Right, that's quite possible.
I'll also point out that as someone who has elder family members in institutions like this, you ring that bell, they may or may not come.
It's absolutely
for
true.
Like, no offense to the nursing staff, they're just understaffed.
They're often understaffed and way overworked.
There aren't enough of them,
right.
So you do not always get your call answered immediately.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know why that was really what I was focused on last night.
But I think you're right. Like, it's not. I mean, we're supposed to assume that Misty. Yeah, I don't know, but like, so Misty withholds her morphine.
Yeah.
And we learn more and more about that Misty is darker and capable of more than we even thought as the show goes on.
Yeah.
Probably is has some like Angel of Death stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and we also see...
So this is maybe the least of her, what she's capable of,
Yeah. We also get a quick view of her interacting with her coworkers as she leaves for the night, where you just start to get this little brief sense of the fact that people think she's fucking weird and don't want to be around her.
Mm-hmm. And she's so chipper in that scene after having just been so cruel to that woman. Like,
would she say, like, Happy Friday, ladies, or something? Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And we see Nat's watching her from her car.
Yeah, and that's all we get of present-day Misty.
Yeah. But
she really, for most of season 1, is more like comic relief than anything else. We don't get a whole lot of, like, Misty's internal life.
Right.
Really until Elijah Wood shows up, right?
Well, we do see her getting picked on with the prank phone calls and stuff. But yeah, as an adult, she's just very sort of like calculated.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Do you want to have diner talk?
Yeah, we get a diner.
It's a very small little diner.
Yeah, it's like an old, like it reminds me of like...
It's not a big Greek diner.
No, it's like a little Silver Bullet kind of diner. Not actually Silver Bullet, but it's got that sort of like feel.
Not your suburban diner, not your TikTok diner.
No, it's like an Angelo's or a Berlin.
Or a Bendix. Yeah. Yeah. Not a State Line. We could just sit here and name diners. Not a Twin Oaks, although it's a little more Twin Oaks than it is a suburban. Rest in peace, Twin Oaks Diner.
Speaking of rest in peace.
I know. I'm sorry.
This is our podcast.
Heard this one.
Yeah, this is our podcast. We can do what we want. This scene is it's just perfect that when Shauna needs to meet with someone somewhere that feels safe and neutral, and also where you can have a conversation and not worry that the people around are going to be listening or even care.
Yep.
It's a diner.
Yep. 100%.
It's a diner.
It had to be.
It had to be. They
couldn't have that conversation anywhere else.
No.
With the waitress refilling the coffee. I also noticed that in this scene, when the waitress fills her coffee, Shauna is like perfect, polite diner patron to the waitress and then goes back to this super intense conversation, which is so perfect.
It's exactly right. It's how it'll... Yeah.
Yeah. She refills her coffee. She's like, oh, thank you so much. And then goes back to like
right back.
Her... Yeah. Yeah.
And she knows she could say anything in front of that waitress, and the waitress isn't even here.
Yeah.
No.
The things that diner waitresses have heard. Oh my God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm wondering what time it is, because sadly, one of the things about Jersey diners is like notoriously, famously, forever and ever and ever, 24 hours a day.
Yep.
No longer the case. There are a small handful. And if you're not from Jersey, you don't know what a big deal that is, but it's a huge deal. And just this week, my diner, my the diner I literally cried on New Jersey as a World talking about it this week.
Yeah.
It closed. It had been owned by the same people for 25 years, which is like, in terms of diners, not, I mean, some of them have been, but it has always been my diner even before it was Starview, forever. Like that, it has always been a diner there. And it closed down this week. And that's heartbreaking. But then also, literally the day the episode that we recorded that episode on, I think, Wednesday night, and the episode came out on Thursday, or we recorded on a Thursday, came out on Friday. And then that day, another one of the diners I grew up going to announced that it was closing. And something I forgot to mention is that other diner, Gateway Diner, which has been around forever and ever and ever, was forced to close because of a highway project.
Jesus
Eminent
Christ.
domain. All like in the last, so it's so beautiful to see these on screen. It just like, even, you know, our namesake The Watcher, which was such a stupid,
horrible
weird,
show.
baffling show. But even that show knew, like, if you're going to meet with somebody,
You meet in a diner.
you meet at a diner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's now The Watcher is more important to me than ever, because it's like, now we've got these little artifacts of an era that is sadly, like, we're losing. So that's my diner corner.
Okay. Diner tangent. So yeah, the last bit we get in 2021 is just Shauna reading her journals. And so we see the, like, why haven't they found us yet? You know? And she's sitting with her journals reading them. We see that she has them in a safe, which will again come in later.
Yeah, and I think the reason she went into the safe in the first place was to get her burner phone to call Ty. Because she tells Jessica, I wouldn't know how to get a hold of these people even if I wanted to. It's obviously not true, but she's smart enough that, like, now if Jessica Roberts runs her phone records,
she's got her burner phone.
Yeah, but that's
it's
when
a flip
she
phone.
Obviously was like, you think this is probably the first time she's read her journal since?
I don't know. I get the impression that this is not too far from her daily mind, you know?
That's true too.
But yeah.
But she does say later in season 2, I think it's her, who's like, she says something about, like, not being able to remember everything that happened and how much was blocked out and all of that. Maybe that's Lottie.
I think that was Lottie.
Yeah.
I think that was Lottie.
It does make sense to me that Shauna would have perfect recall of all of this.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's something about her where I'm like, and then it's still just going about her day, ironing clothes and going to Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What a great fucking pilot.
It's incredible.
And again, the music. Smashing Pumpkins, Liz Phair, Informer, Salt and Peppa, Marky Mark, Hole, Throwing Muses, Paloma Faith, PJ Harvey. Like,
yeah.
all in the first episode. I think there was more than that, but those are the ones that I, like, really remembered. Incredible.
It's such bait for, like, I know everybody loves this show, but if you are a middle-aged white woman from New Jersey,
between
like,
the ages of 35 and 48,
how could you not be obsessed?
it's catnip. It really
is.
All that music. Not only the music, but where it's used and the variety.
Yes.
Like you were saying earlier, having Liz Phair and then switching directly to Informer. Like, that dichotomy is perfect.
They're so thoughtful about that stuff in the show. And they continue to be.
Yeah.
It is every episode. There's at least one drop that is like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, we are going to next week have one of my favorites of the whole show, the coming down the mountain moment. I think
excited.
That's next episode.
Yeah, who knows though?
I can't remember.
And yeah, I'm excited to talk about the next episode because there are a lot of things.
Sorry, I think it's actually later. We don't get that right away.
Interesting, because so much of what I thought we got in this episode, in my head, I'm thinking now that we didn't. I'm like, oh, it must be the next episode, but maybe not.
I don't think so, actually. I was just looking at the music list, and I think that Jane's Addiction drop is actually not next episode.
It'll be. I'm really interested to see how we get. It's so hard to think about it in a linear way, in a chronological way, because of how they fed it to us, all this information. So I'm interested to see how we actually did get delivered this story.
Yeah, totally. We said we were going to talk a little bit at the end about, because we know that season 3 is in production. I think they're still just writing, and don't think they've started filming yet. But we were going to just briefly touch on like what we would like to see in season 3. And you had said you had an ideal season 3 in your
I know
brain.
exactly what I want. I want season 3. I don't even need to see the wilderness beyond the first scene being them getting rescued. I don't even need to know how. I don't even need to know how it happens necessarily yet. Like, I would almost be okay if all of season 3 was 2021 and then 1990, what is it, 7 or 8 when they make it, 1998 when they make it back.
So you want a bottle season?
I would be fine with, again, a bottle flashback season.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten so much in the wilderness. So many of the big mysteries in the wilderness have been, if not totally tied up, like Shauna's baby, has been like, we've gotten some sort of closure-ish on, like Javi. We know.
Yeah, we know they eat each other.
Yeah, which was the big thing that, like, I think I probably said, I'm almost sure that I said back in the beginning of season 2 that I would be fine, that it would be very funny if the last episode of season 5 was when we finally see them eat a person.
Yeah.
So, like, all of that big stuff is kind of, and what Shauna says to Jessica Roberts, where she's like, it was cold, we blah, 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 we blah, 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 is almost like how much of what happens out in the wilderness now is going to be them traipsing around in the cold, trying to survive. They don't have the cabin. We know that they're going to hunt and eat. It doesn't matter to me or you who the Antler Queen is. It's probably Natalie in that scene. Yeah. And I think that scene of them is late in the second winter. They're deep in the winter. So I'm kind of like, who... I sort of want to know who Pit Girl is, but it's probably Mari.
I think that part of what they have left to kind of pick from in that part of the story is... the very first logline we ever saw for the show was about 2 warring clans, right? And so the idea of like almost like a civil war between the 2 factions.
Well, I think we go back to that for season 4.
Okay, but I do think that that's kind of what we still have to get to in the woods. Yeah. Also, like, what the fuck happens to Ben? Like, you know,
but all of that stuff is stuff that we could put a pin in, or stuff that we could go back. I mean, I'm half joking about I don't even need to see anything else in the wilderness. Yeah. But what I really need from season 3 for me is rescue.
After rescue, yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And it can be both.
I think it would be interesting.
We get both in season 1. We get 96. This episode, we get 96 in the woods and at home.
I think it would be interesting, actually, if we took a pause on 2021. And saw Woods and like 96 and 99 or something, or 96 and 2005, like whatever, like something, you know, maybe post-rescue and like 10 years later or something.
Actually, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, because I feel like 2021 did struggle a little bit this season to be as relevant and sort of like life and death feeling as the stuff in the woods.
I have changed my mind and you have changed it for me. Because where we ended with season 2, I remember saying to you, like Misty's got to go to jail now.
Nat's dead, like, you know.
There's so much of, like, it would be, I just think season 3 will be so miserable if we have to sit in all of that every week.
I think they could totally pause on 2021 and just go back to the woods and to post-rescue or something.
I think that's, I changed my mind. You changed my mind. That's what I want.
Well, hopefully they are on the same wavelength as me.
Or what if there are no flashbacks and it's just post-rescue? And we get no flashes. That would be a really weird...
It would be weird, but...
way to... But yeah. But I think I very much... I think I need a break. I think I'm of... Well, I don't know. Am I of the... I think I need a break from 2021. I just wasn't thinking about the fact that we could get one.
Yeah.
I don't know that I need a break from 1996 in the wilderness. I'm just less invested in the plot of what's going on there right now.
Well, and also because we know the outcome of some of it. So, like, it's just about how they get there, not what's going to actually happen. Like, we know who survives for the mostly part. There's some that we're not sure of, but yeah. No, and that's the thing is, like, I don't want to lose my Melanie Linsky and my Christina Ricci and my Tawny Cypress and all of those wonderful actresses that are our current day characters. So that I would be sad to not have.
Right.
But I also feel like they kind of painted themselves into a corner a little bit with killing Nat. And now it's like, Adam's body is still in the woods somewhere, theoretically, but like, did we solve that with some Elijah Wood Deus Ex Machina? We might have. Like,
right. Adam's body,
yeah. His torso.
Did they found it.
That's right. They found it. But like, oh, and so that's what I meant about the Deus Ex Machina, because I literally couldn't remember how they ended up explaining that away.
They haven't yet. That's like something that happens toward the end, is that's what I mean, is like they will have to do so many cartwheels to make it not be, because Kevin's dead, but they have a sort of, there's that really poorly done stuff with Elijah Wood that you're talking about with Walter, which I guess if we want to suspend our disbelief, but there also is like they found Adam's body. Like there's so many things there's too much happening there to let it all be explained away. I don't know.
Yeah. So all that to say, I feel like 2021 got a little convoluted towards the end, or felt, at least to some people, me included, a little bit like they were trying to tie things up really fast with Nat to like, you know, end the season with Juliette Lewis free. And so, yeah.
I think it might be just smart from a more meta pulled back view too, to put a little pause there and let that kind of...
Well, and one of the things that drew people to this show was how innovative it was in terms of format and tying the timelines together. Yeah. So they really need to keep being innovative and not just then rest on what they've been doing.
Right. And they have hinted, we have one scene of the girls getting off the plane.
Yep. Yes, that is true.
And I think they've talked about wanting to explore that part of their story.
Right.
So
yeah.
It'll happen eventually. I think it also makes so much sense for it to be smack in the middle of, if it's going to be a 5-season show, season 3 is the place for it.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Agreed. We have decided what it should be. Settled. It was so nice to be back.
I know.
In Jersey.
Especially before things start to get really in the weeds of it all.
Yeah. So, we were going to ask if you found us from Reddit, or if you didn't, but especially if you found us from Reddit, because I know some of you did, and we love and appreciate you. Because we don't want to be self-promoting nightmares, and also because I think we're not allowed. We're not going to go be like, hey, Reddit, we're back on the Yellowjackets thing. But if you're excited that we are, and you're back with us, maybe let people know. Be like, hey, they're going back to season 1. If you didn't check them out before, maybe do now.
Yeah, and I'm not, I said to you, again, off mic, so I mean it. For me, it's not about like, I want our numbers to be higher. Genuinely, I am a full-time, my day job is podcast production. I don't check our numbers. That's not what the show is for me or you at all.
No.
I keep joking about when we get to 1 million downloads. Maybe we do. Maybe every week. Maybe if you check the charts, it's smartless. Conan O'Brien needs a friend in the Watchers. Right. I don't know. Maybe.
Sure.
It's not. Yeah. It's not, obviously. But you never know.
If you don't look, you never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not what I mean. I just love having a community. I like that we are having a conversation now that is that can open up more of the conversations around season 1. I would love to have more people have that conversation with. And it's hard to get the word out about your own podcast. That way.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Because, we're not, like you said, we're not doing this for advertisers, numbers, money, whatever. We're doing it because this was a really fun show to talk about, and it kind of sparked a bunch of other conversations. So.
And we love having more people to have those with.
Yes, exactly.
And now's also a good time if you haven't left us a review yet.
It is. It's always a good time.
I was thinking about that too, because one of the things that I like to do when we were doing our movies is after we recorded our movie podcast is I would go through and search the movie that we talked about and then just see what other podcasts were having conversations about that movie and like just listen. And the first thing I always do is look at the reviews. That's real.
Yes, it is real. Yeah. And especially like, I think that One of the best parts about doing this podcast for me has been when people find us that have a similar sensibility and are like, this is like listening to my friends. I'm like, that is the best thing you could possibly say. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people who has left us a review, or who has, I mean, we've talked to a few of you on the various subreddits and stuff. We really do love and appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
It's been so fun. Because you and I could just do this through like a text message.
We literally did.
We do.
Yes.
We did and we do.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
But it's really fun to have more people in on the conversation.
Yeah. 100%. All right. Where can they find us, Andrea?
Oh, they can find us at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram. Mm-hmm. They can email us at WatchersPod. They can email WatchersPodNJ@gmail.com. If you have anything coming up about next week's episode, because this will be out before you and I record again, that you have been speculating about, that you aren't hearing people talk about, or any of your Reddit red string theories that you want to highlight, whatever, shoot us an email. And I'd love to highlight those on the podcast. Like I said, I really love when this feels like a real conversation. And yeah, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram. Thank you for asking. At Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM. It is my art account. It has nothing to do with Yellowjackets, but
it's great art.
Sure.
It's a little bit to do with Yellowjackets because they're often severed's not the right word, but like body parts and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
You also, a lot of your art is about female community.
Yeah, once a feminazi, always a feminazi.
I'm at AQ Andrea Q.
There you go.
In all the places.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Next week we are watching season 1, episode 2, F Sharp. The teens get their bearings as Misty finds hell on Earth quite becoming. In the present, revenge, sex, homework, and the policeman formerly known as Goth.
Oh, Kevin.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. We will see you in, well, we could say Jersey or the woods, but not both.
That's right. You pick.
See you in the woods.